I'm going to do that very uncool TED thing of saying, this is really exciting for me to do this. You don't often hear that at the beginning of TED videos, but I think you should a bit more. So I'm going to talk to you about some of the work that we do. My name's Dominic Campbell. I run a small firm called FutureGov, and I'm lucky enough to work with a small gang of cool people who are really interested in how we can use technology and the web to transform government and politics. So I'm going to be talking about stuff that has letters missing at the beginning. But let me just say, I'm here kind of representing a merry band of what I like to know as militant optimists. There's this growing group of us out there, and I hope you would all be part of this gang too. And if not now, then by the end of the talk. It's a great term that David Barry's come up with, but it's a group of people that are increasingly trying to look at the relationship between citizen and state and how we can actually transform that relationship, particularly using technology to make government more human, to get people better involved in government, to even totally reimagine what government means. Is it this? This is my personal story. This is where I started 9 years ago. Very, very classic local government story. That's Barnet Town Hall in North London. Doesn't look like the hotbed of innovation and disruption. But you'd be surprised, actually. I'm going to stick up. So I am obsessed with local government. Sorry, I have to admit, I'm a total loser when it comes to local government. I think it's so cool. I actually wanted to work in local government before I even went to university. I knew that's what I wanted to do. Like, I bet you'll never meet anyone else ever again who will say that. It's an interesting place to work. It's everything you think it is on the bad side, but a hell of a lot of good stuff as well, which never really gets talked about. There's really enthusiastic, really innovative, really creative people who are there because they really care. It's quite a thankless task a lot of the time, so I think we need to cut them a break, but it still needs more. So this is also me. The other side of my life is my web obsession, and in particular Twitter. And the last two slides are really the foundation of my career and the foundation of FutureGov, and also me being lucky enough to be part of this movement that's now often called Gov 2.0, Government 2.0, building on how do you transform the web government using Web 2.0 technologies. So Twitter has been pretty fundamental to why I'm here tonight in so many ways, which I can't really go into because there's so many of them, but it's fascinating just from a personal journey how disruptive to my life this disruptive technology has been to actually take me out of being in the back office of a town hall in North London to suddenly being here 3 years later is phenomenal. And I think also part of this, and it's beyond technology, is what I'll try and push through this talk, is around what is the kind of culture that we're all striving for? What is the new world that we're pushing for? How do we actually change the way people think and relate to each other? And for me, I think it's really important that we start to break down these boundaries, and your personal journey is really important as part of that. So I've always really not cared too much for these boundaries and distinctions. And I think that's kind of illustrated by, I was probably one of the first people I know to put my Twitter account on my corporate email signature. It's a silly little thing, but at the time, 4 years ago, people were like, I'm now getting a corporate email from you, and a minute later reading about you eating cheese sandwiches. It's a bit strange, but all of a sudden, you're this person outside of work, you're this person who is a rounded individual and doing other things. And so for me, it is a lot about culture change. And I really don't care about technology in the web in and of itself. I care about the outcomes, the things that it can do to transform the relationship between people and network people together. So I think that we're at a point now where you're either with us or you're against us. Are you just trying to nibble away at government and make it slightly more efficient, shine the windows on the town hall, make the odd bit of savings here and there? Or are we actually going to transform government into something entirely different? And so for me, I think the big shift is from thinking about public institutions, which are fine and they serve a purpose and they've been there for centuries, but actually, how do we actually come together to think about creating public value, which is far more about a shared vision for the world we want and how we all contribute to that rather than looking to public institutions to have all the answers. And then for me as well, vitally important is what role can technology play within that. And it isn't technology in and of itself, it's for a purpose. And so there's this great term that two good friends of mine in New York have come up with. So Mika Sifri and Andrew Rajay. And so they talk about this shift from e-government, which is, oh look, your council suddenly got a website, to we government, which is much more about how can we use these technologies, whether it's Twitter or any whole host of other collaboration tools, to bring you guys into the inside of government, to show you what's happening on the inside, and then at the same time for them to reach out and be understanding of the world that we all live in and to actually shape public services around our needs. So for me, these are the kind of building blocks that are fundamental to this culture shift in terms of the world that I want to see and that I'm pushing for. So how can we be more open and collaborative, social, inclusive, democratic and network? These are just some core values that I think are really important when we're thinking about how we transform government. And this is not how we transform government. This is, I've just realised that very second, this is a strange place to be saying this. This is his Masters in Public Administration reading list and around how to do change management in the public sector. There is no mention of the internet in those books. Utterly ludicrous. So I really don't know what leaders of the future we're creating in some of these courses. I'm sure you've got internet through and through in London Business School, but... anyway, so for me, in terms of tactics for change, I think the really crucial thing is that we're pushing from two sides. So on the one hand, we need to be disrupting from the inside of government. We need the entrepreneurs inside government. And as I said at the beginning, there are a lot of them who are mega frustrated, love their job, wish the hierarchy wasn't the hierarchy, could get stuff done. And then the people on the outside who are creating the faster change, the vision to reach towards that, and how do we bring those two sides together? So this is a ridiculous diagram explaining what Government 2.0 is. It looks like one of those push-pull railway things, I think, that you would see in Wild West movies. But essentially, this is the bit that interests me the most. It's how does Government 2.0 from the inside out put pressure on itself to change? And then how do citizens, using web technologies, come together to make change happen, to create a vision for change for government to reach out to support and to move forward with? And this really requires a new kind of leadership. As I keep going back to, the technology is kind of secondary. It does give you opportunities to do things that nothing else can and never has before. So the internet is wicked, no doubt about it. But you do need the kind of leadership that is going to change this stuff. And it is about giving people permission to experiment, to do things differently, to actually take a risk when really it isn't that much of a risk really now, is it, to set up a blog for your chief executive? But, you know, in relative terms, if that's risky, then go for it. And then also stop celebrating techno-ignorance. Like, there's just this culture from Obama downwards, frankly, of thinking it's okay to say, oh, I don't understand that stuff. And it really has to stop. So we need these new leaders in place to actually break these things down. And as I say, it's aspiring to something new. They need to hold these values true to themselves. And that's why I was talking about myself and my personal outlook on life, because I think that I'm part of a new generation of people who believe in this authenticity and transparency and working together in a far more effective way. PowerPoint, go for it. So there's some great examples out there where this stuff's happening. And frankly, it is old-style leadership in an internet age, because old-style leadership is kind of cool. So Cory Booker, who's mayor of Newark, New Jersey, go and look him up after this. I really wanted to show you a video, but I don't have enough time. But he has got the most amazing YouTube channel ever, where him and Conan O'Brien were having this spat on Saturday night TV week after week, because Conan O'Brien attacked Newark, New Jersey, and he responded on YouTube, and it was hilarious. But he is just putting it out there, being himself, setting a vision, and then using technology to reach the world and the masses directly in a far more interesting and interactive way that is utterly changing the relationship between him as a politician and the people he wants to serve. He tweets regularly. He's got 1.3 million Twitter followers in a city of 300,000 people. As you can tell, I'm quite a fan, so I'm one of the ones who don't live there. But yeah, so there's some really great examples out there. We're doing some stuff over here. This is where we're supporting politicians at a very local level to change the way they work. We built this site, Tweety Hall, where you can find out whether your local councillor is on Twitter and then stalk them in a Web 2.0 way, not just send them emails and letters. And then there's great examples. So we went back to Barnet, and where I started out in my career, and splashed them across the social web because they wanted to engage. They wanted to go where the communities were. They wanted to change their way of branding themselves and made sure that they were out there. And then there's initiatives around open data, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard about, around how can government put its spending up online. And all of this is about engaging and increasing transparency and trust in the government sector with the citizens. In many ways, it's not being used as much as people would like, but in other ways that doesn't matter so much because the government is saying, we really want you to trust us and work with us. And one example, this is a project that we're working on at the moment, which actually goes live on Monday, which is very exciting. And just to show that there are disruptive innovators inside of local government, we've actually built an application, a Web 2.0 application, which is being hosted inside a local council, which is all about bringing together anyone and everyone across the public sector who want to do child protection, who are responsible for preventing another Baby Peter tragedy from happening. And they've allowed us to draw nice cartoons and actually turn those into a very modern web application. We're talking about people who have technology that's 10, 20 years old, who suddenly are being catapulted into the Flickr generation of technology, and they're responding. People are fascinated by it, and they're actually changing their way of working, which is really disrupting the classic hierarchical way of doing things. And then on the other side, just quickly, very quickly, looking at the iPad, there is the JFDI, which I'll leave you to work that out if you don't know what it is, generation. And they're the people pushing from the outside. They're the ones who are creating parallel structures. Carrie Bishop, who I'm honoured to work with, who's a great colleague, she talks about parallel structures where you're not destroying the system with this technology, you're just creating an entirely new system. Just using the web to create new structures for yourself, coming together with people like you to actually fix your own problems. And so normally where there's bright colours and shiny logos like these, you've normally stumbled into a place where social innovators are trying to do something new and creative and interesting. And there's things like examples in Washington, D.C., for instance, when they had Snowmageddon, where we were actually, because I spend a lot of time in Washington, we were snowed 2 foot of snow, 8-foot snow drifts. No joke, it was Snowmageddon. But people were reporting for themselves where they were trapped in their homes, where bus shelters were trapped with snow. And then people were self-organising through the power of the web to go out and dig each other out, because obviously the city workers were trapped themselves, so we were pretty stuffed. Similarly with the clean-up operation in terms of the Gulf oil spill as well. And then similarly reporting potholes and the like. There's a lot more of this move towards civic activism. The Australian version has to be the best. It's buggered, mate. And similarly, Hackney has a fantastic social network that a bunch of hipsters have set up where they're having conversations. And often these are quite difficult places for politicians to reach out to. They know they need to get involved, but where do you start with something that's called Fuck Yeah Hackney? I mean, it's a bit risky. But that's where the hipsters are hanging out online, and really that's a constituent that you should be reaching out to. And then there's great examples where these social innovations are actually working in partnership with government. So School of Everything and the Learning Revolution. And loads of examples increasingly where people are just getting together, and then the government is catalysing that through funding, through change initiatives to enable them to reach a scale that's far bigger than just them and their local neighbourhood. And I'll skip over that. And all I will say to finish is just to encourage you to join us now as a militant optimist, get on the web, get creative, and get going. So thank you very much.